The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Page One Power webinar. We are happy to have you with us. It is December 14th, 2016, and this is our last webinar of the year. It's been a crazy year. So we're back in this series that we started late summer, Link Building Live. This is going to be a live demonstration webinar. And as always, broadcasting live from Boise, Idaho. It is snowing as we speak. The white stuff is coming down, and so get cozy, get a blanket, some hot chocolate, a candy cane to stir that with, and let's begin. That is myself. I am the event coordinator here at Page One Power, and I talk a little bit, but usually just get out of the way and let the experts take over. And I'm going to be doing the same today. And you know this guy, he is in the house, Colin Eggleston, our Director of Training. Hello, Colin.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody.
And first time joining us, we have Daphne Stanford. She is a SEO specialist, writer. She's a DJ of her own radio show and also a link builder here at Page One Power. Hello, Daphne.
Hi everyone. How's it going?
I'm sure that they said, fine, Daphne. I'm sure that's what their reply was all over the interwebs. So our audience is still coming through. I'm just going to give everybody a little bit more time. Let's review what we're going to talk about today. Today's topic's a little different than past. We've done different aspects of link building. Today we're going to be focusing on probably the most prevalent and the most prominent form of obtaining links, and that is by guest blogging or guest posting or obtaining your own editorial like column on a repeated column on a website or a news affiliate or magazine. So first we're going to talk about how do you go about finding those writing opportunities. We're going to take a look at some sample outreach emails to editors, to webmasters, good and bad samples, and but also give you some information, tips, tricks, best practices for what works for us. And then we're going to talk about the writing process, and we're not going to teach you how to write, but we're going to just, for our purposes, share what works best. And then, of course, the most important part for us is relationship fostering, and because that's really what is the payoff over time, is building those relationships with website owners, editors, webmasters all over the world is definitely maintaining relationships and for future opportunities. So we have a quick poll question. We want to figure out what the rest of the audience is doing. So let's see. Well, the poll question is not working correctly. So if you could use just the question tab, let us know, where you're from. Are you working as a freelance SEO person? Are you working in-house, or do you work for an agency doing SEO or link building? So just submit that using the question tab on your control panel. That gives us a good idea of what our audience background is. So we've got a lot of stuff coming in. Christy, she's in-house. Dwayne, he's SEO in-house in Phoenix. Michael, he's SEO agency in Dallas. Portland, Oregon is being represented by Brian, and Mark's saying he's in-house. We've got agency in Montreal. So fantastic. Thank you. Keep that coming in. We'll just keep our eyes on the feed, and it gives us a better idea of what to speak to. So like I said, this is a live demo webinar, so we're going to turn away from the the traditional slideshow and get right into it. So our first screen is just, we're going to start with our familiar friend, the Google search. So I'm going to let Daphne and Colin take it from here and enjoy.
Great, thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, this is a great place to start, and it's funny because my training consultations, a lot of times, we get a lot of questions like, what's your big secret? How do you build your prospecting list? How do you find the perfect site to get, to kind of target for a link? And I was like, well, we live in Google, and we find them through Google, and that's pretty much where we start. It's not the only place that we look. But Google's a great way. I mean, Google's good at what it does is garnering searcher intent and serving up what you want in an efficient manner. And so that's definitely kind of where we start. But we do have a lot of best practices that we like to deploy when we are searching Google for target sites. So for today's conversation, talking about the guest posting, publishing kind of content type links. So we want to find where other content lives and where other content, watering holes are, and so we're going to be searching for places that have blogs and kind of more, more of that, even kind of on the journalistic sites, so maybe sites that maybe talk about current news and like tech or like millennials or news for parents or news for any of those subsets. So news and blogs type sites. So. Daphne, I'm just going to kind of throw it to you here real quick and just kind of talk about like in your day-to-day kind of expertise and kind of your best practices, like how do you kind of dive into, kind of site finding?
Yeah, well, so, a typical Google search is going to look something like this. There's a few clients that we have in, say, that deal with business, right? So we could do something like this, just something pretty simple. You do the Boolean and capital O, and a very common page that sites use is Right for Us, and it'll come up with a few different possibilities, and we'll take a look at some of these. So, it'll give you the guidelines of what you want to do in terms of word counts, and every site is different. Most of them, you'll submit your post as a Word document, but first you'll usually do a pitch beforehand. So it just depends. You want to make sure, one thing that I will say, you want to make sure to follow those headlines really, really carefully, because that can make the difference between people accepting your pitch and not. Like I know for a fact, this one, they want you to live in Vancouver, BC, or else you can't write there. So that's, one of those things. That's one example of a search. There's common phrases like contributors, guidelines, contributors, guidelines, doesn't necessarily. That's another way to find it, and you can vary your search term. If you want to do something a little bit more specific, you could do entrepreneurs, women. There's just lots of different angles that you can look for, and then.
So let me jump in and interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
So Daphne, if you're assigned a new campaign and your client is focusing their content on entrepreneur women, or that's their audience that they want to speak to, this is the search that you would do to find writing opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And you want to make sure to have like a sniff test, as we call it. So some sites don't necessarily make the cut, I would say. It just depends. I mean, it's good to look at recent posts and kind of get a sense of if there's interaction, if there's people commenting or not. That can be a good sign. This one's only gotten 2 shares, so it might not have tons of readership, for example. Whereas I know Miracy is a pretty popular site. They, like you say, it says in the previous page, they've been seen on Forbes, Copyblogger. So this is unfortunately not taking pitches right now, but that's just to give you an example of kind of the sites that are going to give you some more publicity. So
Like, let's look at that example just for the fact that, so the content editor has decided we're not going to take any more guest posts right now. But is that something that you might like save as a bookmark, come back to later?
Sure, and you could even reach out to the editor and just be like, hey, I know you're not you're not accepting posts, pitches right now, but you are doing it again in the new year. Would you be interested in entertaining an idea that I have? And they might be open to that.
Just trying to save yourself a spot on their calendar,
develop
maybe?
their relationship. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So those are some things that I do.
Yeah, and I and that's tremendous, and that I really it really is kind of that simple. It's that simple and that's complicated. One of the things that we can't show in this webinar is that this search, going through and combing through pages and pages and pages of Google results can be very time intensive, because finding, we're not just going to find necessarily everything in the first 10. We're going to have to vet maybe 100, 200, 300 before we can actually get maybe 10 perfect targets. 10% of what we see, of what we vet, we'll probably actually only pass the smell test and whatnot. I wanted to jump in too, just like another best practice that using Google search, and kind of, so if we're looking for I guess post opportunities, I like to even I just kind of like to see what's out there, and not necessarily, regardless of our client's industry, if they're business or they're business or mountain bikes or whatever. I just like to do this. I like to throw some quotes around, right for us. Okay, make sure it's spelled correctly there. Okay, so I like to do just a right for us, but I like to change things up a little bit. I like to go to tools. I like to go to any time, and I change that to the past month.
Oh, there you go.
So things that have been crawled, or presumably, obviously this is when they've been crawled, so maybe they've been posted, earlier. They could have been posted in last March for all we know, but that's when Google crawled it and is serving it through the pipeline. But pretty much this is ostensibly, this is going to give us a kind of a finger on the pulse of the people who have the websites out in the wild that have most recently made a right first page.
And I would think from their point of view, they're going to be excited because they just posted this page and they got responses off of it. Yeah. So if you do it kind of like the first way as well, sometimes you're going to get like in the first example, which is really great. But some of these right first pages, have been around for a long time, and maybe things have changed, and kind of things have creeped up and creeped around in the search results. But if we just kind of do the time limitation and then sort it by I just like doing the month, like that is really good. Even the last week, and then sort it by date even. So you have like literally like 4 minutes ago this was crawled and served up. Wow. Like, okay, how cool is that? So this is a really good way. And obviously it's agnostic of any sort of niche, but it's you might find, then you can kind of refine your niche and kind of go through there. So anyway, just something I really like to do. So that was tools, and then what was the
tools? And then it just pulls up, does this little flip around here, and then you can sort by date, and it'll say defaults to any time, and then tools, and you just switch it over to past month, and it'll do that. And I like to sort by date. Nice. So that's why I enjoy that.
That's a good point, because otherwise they may not have updated their site for a year or something, and you don't want to bother wasting your time.
Exactly. Sometimes they could just be letting the time kind of run out on their website, and they're just going to let it expire and whatnot. So I think we're going to move to Twitter. I think was the next one. So I'll just pull this one over. So another way I really like to search for opportunities, I recommend, is going through Twitter and just doing a quick hashtag search of like guest post. Oops, no space. Guest posts. Let's try guest posts here. There we go. Okay, so I like to do the hashtag guest post, and then switch it over to, I like to do latest, and then that will just show me again kind of like a like a ticker tape of like, okay, what's the most recent guest post that people are kind of talking about online, and you can kind of see, some are, we're going to see some kind of spam there, so I might maybe mute some that kind of pulls up is a lot. But yeah, right, there we go. So that's really pushing that. But there's going to be some gems, some real gems in there, and not just guest posts. I like to search for hashtag bloggers wanted is a good one too, or guest bloggers wanted or whatnot. So again, these are places that are actively seeking out guest posters, and it's a really good way to kind of like get in on the ground floor, because a lot of the sites when I've been curating these too is these are going to be newer websites that are content light, that need more and more content, and so they're like desperately they're throwing out the net and saying, hey, we're just looking for anybody to come write for us and do that. So I don't know, Daphne, anything to?
Yeah, no, same thing. I think that's a great idea. You could also, do a topic search with that if you want, and in conjunction with it, and that'll work just as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of finding the general ones though, because you can know which ones are most recently interested in people. And
yeah, you could definitely
more receptive to you. So.
Yeah, and sometimes that's good too. Maybe you get on the ground floor. Maybe the site. I found like sometimes the site will have like a 2 or 3 DA. They're a brand new site, but even guest posting, getting some links from that 2 or 3 DA site, that's going to build up your page authority, because that as the longer that blog post is live with links pointing back to your website or to your client's website. Yeah, out the door it's a 2 DA or 3 DA link, but if that site is in it for the long haul, come back here next Christmas, and that 2 DAs might be a 20 DA, and that PA, because every blog post starts with a 0 PA, basically a 1 PA is the default, that page authority is going to grow, and that's, a lot of people would argue that that's a more important piece of equity than just the domain authority as well. So anyway, fun stuff there. I love site finding. Let's see. So let's see. What was the other? We're going to go through the with the BuzzStream. That's right. We're doing it live, people. We're doing it live.
Quick question. I'm gonna interrupt. We got a quick question from T-Red. He asked, will we be getting a copy of this? Yes, we are going to email everybody who registered a copy of the video recording. But if you don't want to wait, just subscribe to our YouTube channel, Page One Power, and you'll see that in your notifications. We also have a page on our website called Webinars that has all the recordings right there. So if you want to go back and watch our past Link Building Live webinars, do that as well. But look for the email. It'll be coming through first thing tomorrow morning.
Excellent. And I just want to show you too, and I want to give a shout out to BuzzStream. We do actually use their, full disclosure, we use their tool as kind of our outreach organization and platform. But they don't sponsor this webinar or any message or anything like that. But what I have found through working with BuzzStream is that they have a free page that's open to everybody. That's BuzzStream.com, tools.buzzstream.com/link-building. But it's right on there. If you just go to their BuzzStream root URL, root domain here, scroll down to the footer here, and just click on free tools, and that's going to get you here. So this is important. This has a lot of really fun. I mean, we could do a webinar on every single one of these tools. These are great time savers that they have for free. But we're going to talk about today is the link building query generator. And I'll just do a quick walkthrough of this really quickly, because this is this helps us kind of supercharge. It's kind of a force multiplier for our Google searches, because the write for us is great, and the guest post and searching for those using those keywords are great. But what are the rest? What are the other ones that we want to think about that'll help us find these opportunities? Well, BuzzStream's got your back. So product category, let's just say hats. Your brand, Stetson.
Yeah.
Why not? I hope I'm spelling that correctly. Target market.
People with heads.
People who love hats. Why not? Yeah, people with hats. Your website, www.com, keyword, cool hat, competitor website, www.badhats.com, keyword, another keyword I don't know would be hats for sale. Caps.
Hipsters.
Yeah, keyword. Hipsters.com. Why not? Okay, so you fill this out, obviously a little bit more in tune with your clients. You hit create link building queries, and it automatically populates this amazing list right here that gives you all these different queries that you can try based on your market and your competitors and your keywords that you want to rank for. And the other thing that I love about it is so you can get these ideas. So like you get ideas for finding guest bloggers wanted. They say it in a lot of different ways. So you can kind of take this and run with it and kind of change it around for your own variations. But what I love too is that this little icon, this Google and Bing icon. Let's see, the Google one. Okay, good. Google one works great. It loads great.
Search for you.
So what it did is just by clicking on that, it automatically did the search for me. And then you just go back here and look at, okay, submit guest posts, people who love hats, and I can do it on Bing too. So it'll do it for you. You click on the Bing or the Google icon, and it'll do that search for you in that search engine. But wait, there's more, people. But wait, there's more. If you want to get away from guest posting, I recommend this going down here, maybe finding some niche directories. Use your own risk because some directories are not worth our time, but there might be some that are useful. I won't go into kind of the exact details there. Look for product reviews, which is kind of more content. News, which is great, especially if you have a brand that's kind of in the news every now and then. And so like we had a brand. We worked for this lovely. It was I believe it was a maternity and children's wear clothing. And one of and the royal, I believe the royal baby, after the royal baby was born, was a prince. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I don't keep up on that. I don't keep up on the royal news. But it was in a news article that our clients' clothing that the baby wore at once. And so there was like there's a news article of like 1 million images, a ton of images of that baby wearing our client's clothing. And boy, howdy, we found so many great news mentions and like unlinked mentions in there. And so, yeah, so something that's, if your client makes an appearance in the news, even just briefly, these are really great opportunities as well. So anyway, BuzzStream, they're not paying for this plug, but I recommend it because it's free for everybody. Everyone can just go and do it. So maybe BuzzStream will see a slight bump in traffic today and be like, wait, why is that? I don't know why. So it'll be our little secret. They'll just be scratching their heads over that. Great. Anything to add on that before we move on?
No, I just like the idea of maybe getting some more ideas for write for us phrases. Like you had the submit.
Yeah.
So, become guest writer. Different kinds of things you can try in Google to try to find contributors pages to explain how to submit writing. So.
There's a lot of ways to say that phrase for sure. Mm-hmm. Excellent. So as far as Mike, what was the next? We're going to look at outreach. Oh, I think that concludes the site finding portion of our show. We're going to look at outreach.
Yeah, so let's say your client or your campaign you're working on is so niche, detailed, like so specific that you're not going to find a page that says write for us on this particular topic of, whether it be organic pet food that's grown in Albania or something. I say that in joking, but there is a lot of you that have clients that have very specific topics that it's hard to get a relevant writing opportunity that makes sense for your client. So that's when you have to outreach directly to a site owner that might not be looking for a guest poster or a guest writer, but you still want to give it a try because their site would be perfect for a client, a link to your client. So yeah, let's take a look at what the emails might look like to introduce ourselves as link builders and what our services. So we can show this one first. This is one that I received. Nick Rojas, he wanted to write on our Page One Power Linkarati blog, and so this is how he introduced himself to us. His subject line says, "Hello, interested in guest post." Very transparent, very direct. First of all, he puts our webpage in there, linked, so we know it's not 100% cut and paste. He took some time to get it in there. It could be a template, but at the same time, he did take the time to mention our industry. He took the time to mention what we do as a company, and then he goes straight into some good examples of his writing. And he's got some publications on some highly credible sites, TechCrunch, Entrepreneur.com, and I'm not sure the last one. I haven't looked at that one visually. But anyways, I was impressed by this. I filter a lot of these emails that come through Page One Power, and I delete a lot of them. But the good ones, I pass them to our content manager, and this one got passed along because it was a really well done letter. So Daphne, you write a lot of emails like this yourself?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't necessarily always put writing sample links in there, but I say if you'd like to, if you're interested in them, I'm happy to send them, and sometimes they will ask. But yes, I think a good practice is to include them, just because it can. You said you were impressed, and that in and of itself, just having some good writing samples for them can really go a long way to convincing them that they should take you on as a writer.
And Carrie asked a question, if we accepted Nick Rojas as a blogger. It is under light consideration at this time. Our content calendar is pretty full for January, and so it might be an opportunity that comes up later in 2017, but we're holding on to it. I don't know what the communication has been. I'll have to check with the editor at our meeting this afternoon.
I had a question for you, Daphne. So do you find that a shorter or longer, more detailed email is typically more successful? What would you say is kind of the over-under on that?
Well, it's funny because I tend to be pretty detailed in lots of my pitches. I mean, you want to be specific enough that the person that you're writing to gets a sense that you have a good idea about how to flesh out your piece, but at the same time you don't want to take up too much of their time. I do a little bit of both, honestly. It just depends, but I think the more concise and also thorough you can be. I mean, you want to be able to impress the person you're writing to. So however you can do that. I like to give at least like a couple paragraphs personally, usually. Not too long, but just to give them an idea of where you're going with the piece that you have in mind. And that would give them a good enough sense of whether they like it or not, really, and whether they want to go with it or not. So.
Do you typically, in your outreach, how long before you kind of drop the information, that you are interested in a guest post? Like, do you get that out of the way really quickly, like in the title or in the first sentence? Or do you kind of say, like, hey, I came across your website and I really enjoyed this story on technology and education and blah, 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 and that's something that really interests me. By the way, I'd really love to do a guest post.
No,
where does that kind of fit in for you?
No, I just cut right to the chase because I figure they probably already know that that's what I'm interested in. It's like, because a lot of people they're not really interested in like chit chat, I always, honestly, I usually just start out my outreach by saying like, I'd like to contribute an article about, women and entrepreneurship, and this is what I'd like to talk about, having to do with that. And I think that they appreciate that straightforwardness. I think that it's not necessary to beat around the bush, but it could be good to make it clear that you're interested in their site as well. I would almost say flip that, the order of that, like, oh, by the way, I really liked this article that I read the other day on your site.
I would tend to agree. There's a really great, I believe it's a TED Talk, or something similar, like, I don't know, what is it? What it's like on IO9, I forget, but with Simon Sinek, and Simon Sinek says that he says that the order matters, and in kind of interpersonal relationships, especially when you're kind of building a business themed relationship, you don't just try to gain someone's trust in order to ask them for the sale.
Right.
You don't buy them a coffee and be nice to them and to the hopes that they let their guard down, and then you asked, oh, by the way, I want a guest post for you.
Right.
Like, I want a guest post on your site.
Yeah.
This whole thing was just a sham, just so that I can butter you up to ask a question. And so the order really matters. And so he was saying, like, in an email, if you need something from someone, lead with the ask.
Yeah.
Lead with that question. So
it makes you seem more assertive.
Yeah.
I think it makes you seem more assertive, and it doesn't give the appearance of you just being scared or trepidatious. Like in this one here, hi Denise, I'm in the process of writing an article about adaptive technology and AI. Boom. Okay, that's what I'm interested in. In this, would you be interested in seeing some writing samples? Because sometimes they don't even need it. But I also include my Twitter handle in my signature so that they can see, because I put most of my writing on there too. And then she got back, yes, send me what you have. It was pretty straightforward.
So that's a nice, short and sweet one.
Yeah, this is a little longer. I mean, interested in writing an article about women in public sector roles. I would explore the ways management and leadership positions have changed. And then I asked a question because it's a UK site. So you want to make sure that if you're writing it to a site that's based in the UK, you want to make sure that they're actually interested in what you say. And then she responded, yes, it's fine. Look at some examples of the past posts, because they want to make sure that you're fitting into the voice of the site. So that's another thing. You want to make sure to try to fit in with the mood and the theme and the voice of the site, of the other articles that are on the site.
So that brings up the question I asked before we went live was, chicken before the egg. I see some guest post email outreach that it makes it sound like they've already got the articles already written, and they're just looking for a home for it. But in your outreach, obviously, you're in the process. You know what topic you're going to write about, but the article has not been written yet. Is that important for an editor to know? What's your perspective on that?
I think so, because I don't, you don't want to come off as being too presumptuous. I mean, some websites, once you've written an article or two for them, they'll give you the WordPress access, and you can just upload things, and then they will take a look at it on their back end with their editor. So it depends on how far along you are with the site. But I think it's good to not be presumptuous, personally, because you don't want to come off as being just a little full of yourself, too confident. So
yeah, it's a fine line between confidence and overconfidence, and confidence and just being not self-aware is really good. Yeah, it's so nice to. I just love seeing these replies and seeing how much time that this site owner took to kind of go through and like address your thoughts and your questions and whatnot too. It's kind of cool too. And kind of like what we'll be talking about kind of towards the end is that relationship building. So we can just kind of put a pin in that, but it's just so cool just to see like a real live example right there. Is just and then I bet I don't know if this is true or not, but I bet you probably still keep in touch with Jenny, or maybe you intend to.
Yeah.
And it looks like a real human connection and not just like an exchange of, here's this article I wrote and have a great day and I'll never see you again.
Right. Well, I also want to mention too, because you mentioned, like sometimes you'll have a client that's about, like, say, hats, and you're not sure how to. So, you want to write about things that are passionate, that you're passionate about, and you want to figure out a way to incorporate different clients into your article in an organic way, but in a way that's not forcing something, square into a round hole, say, for example. So I just think it's important to write about things that you're really passionate about, and find a way to incorporate these things into your article, as opposed to, forcing yourself to write an article about, like, fedoras if you're not interested in fedoras, right?
Right.
There's often a way to do it.
It might be a musical artist or somebody that you admire that wears a certain fedora.
Yeah,
or, maybe you write about an influencer that you've seen wear your favorite style.
Yeah.
Carrie has a great question here. Are we writing these guest posts or having client write them? Typically, Patreon Power, we write everything in-house, 100%. And there have been some rare occasions where, with a partnership with a client, that they have like a whole giant like backlog of articles that they've written before they worked with us, and they'll say like, hey, can you find homes for these as best you can, and then we kind of work there. But our typical way is everything's written in-house and by hand, I guess. Is that the way to say it? I don't know. Handcrafted, artisanal.
Yeah.
So going back to subject line, that first example we looked at, his subject line was "Hello, interested in guest post." Very short and direct and to the point. Daphne, any examples of subject lines you use on a typical basis, or favorites that you like to use?
I mean, I often do like article pitch about entrepreneurs.
Topic or subject.
Yeah. Or I'll be like inquiry about article writing, just so that they know that I'm not. Again, I'm open to whatever it is that they like to work with me about. But
I think one of the best practices too for that all of our outreach that we try to keep in mind is getting past someone's spam filter is really important too. And so I think like that handcrafted email that's not a template, doesn't have a ton of links and pictures in it, that doesn't look like a phishing scam, but you can really tell that there's someone on the other end of that's kind of typing this email for you. And I think, especially in your experience, Mike, as kind of being the arbiter of like, okay, we get all these emails at the Patreon Power inbox, and I have to sort through these. Which one is a handcrafted that I might want to pay attention to? Which one is a form email that we probably, we're one of 10,000 line items that got that email. And I don't know, Daphne, do you see kind of like in your experience that kind of taking a little bit extra time pays dividends as far as like responses?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to come across as canned. I try to be genuine in my approach, and to say something different to each person, because if you do pitch the same thing to someone else, then you're going to be in the position of writing the same email, the same article twice. So.
So Cody just brought up a question that we talked about when we were planning this interview. Great question, Cody. He says, I know every site is different with guest posts with internal links, but should you be upfront that you want to place a link in the post to go back to your site? How do you go about letting them know you want to have internal links? Fantastic question, and this is, I think, it's like a tiptoe situation almost.
Yeah, I mean, I approach all my article writing in terms of, I'm using all my sources as informational links that lend credibility to my argument or to my examples. And I think you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you are like, oh, and there's these links that I really want to get into my article. Like your mission should be to write a good article, and the links are helping to support that article, not the reverse.
So Colin, and you shared with me earlier the result if you do talk about links too soon, what might happen as a backfire?
Oh yeah, well typically typically a lot of people will try to charge, talk about money and talk about link exchange and is one way. But I also recommend too, and we have this conversation with our new hires and as well as is there's going to be people that are skeptical because a lot of our outreach, if not 100% of it, is a lot of it is kind of cold. Is that we find it and we find someone's website, we find their email, and we outreach to them cold. So they're skeptical. They don't know who's on the other end there. And so there's a lot of kind of misconceptions and a lot of misgivings because they haven't built up that trust with you yet. And so they're going to be wondering, are you just trying to use my website because you want a piece of equity and the SEO equity, or are you really here to help me build my user base and build my readership and contribute great content to my audience? And they don't know that yet. And so, and I preferably, kind of like Daphne said, and I like to embrace the fact that we are marketers, we are link builders. And I don't like to shy away from that. I like to embrace it. And so if someone wants to have that conversation, then I'm very open. I recommend being very open, saying yes, I'm actually working with certain brands to kind of expand their web footprint and their equity, while at the same time I'm also a college-educated writer and journalist that wants to expand my portfolio and provide you free professionally written content for your site. So it's not as if there isn't something to gain by partnering with me to kind of build this relationship. But I think that it's important because they don't know us yet. And I always like to say that in link building, strangers are just a friend you haven't met yet. And it's just, and so it's just that's kind of approach, and you build, you build that relationship, and I like to build it on trust, and I like to build it on kind of a mutual partnership and understanding. Let's see. Do you run the websites through? And a great question. Another question from Cody. Do you run the websites through any grader to see if they have a high domain rank? Do you take into consideration? Yeah, that's definitely part of this. Part of the equation. There's a huge, like Daphne mentioned earlier, and I'm bogarting the mic a little bit here, but I want to ask Daphne what she looks for on her website as well. But as the new hire trainer and kind of the smell test, one of the things I talk about in the smell test with my new hires is that we look for domain authority. We try to look for other signs of life. Is it 20 plus is usually kind of what we like to start at. But if it's lower than 20, if it's like a brand new site, but it's really up and coming, I mean, CNN.com started as a 1DA site back in the day, right? So it's kind of seeing the potential of the site, but not just the metrics. But we also, for our own best interests and for our clients' best interests, we like to make sure we run them through Majestic, we run it through Moz. We look at the site's backlinks typically and see is there anything that's interesting or red flags in that backlink portfolio that maybe, okay, if they are getting like 10,000 .ru links a month or 20,000 North Korean links a month, okay, maybe I don't want to partner with that blog because maybe there's something else going on there that I don't see on the surface. Yeah. So we always look at those things. So, and pass it to Daphne, what do you kind of look for as well?
Well, I mean, just, you can tell if there's user engagement, like I mentioned. Also, though, like if there's just a lot of text and not a lot of images, or if there's articles, the most recent article was from a year ago, you definitely don't want to, publish that. It sounds like that's an inactive site. But just there's sniff tests. I mean, there's just like the formatting, the 90s formatting, the bad 90s formatting. You want to avoid that kind of thing. You can, generally speaking, that's going to be a low DA and everything else. And just personal websites, not necessarily as good. It just depends. Is there engagement on Twitter? I would say, go check that out.
Let's look at, just so we get some visuals going. So like, if I'm smell testing through this and sorted by date, last month, I'm going to run these through the smell test, see what is, see if anything's worth a while. Okay, let's look at, okay, right for us, search. And some of these are off topic. Some of these don't even really make sense. Okay, I like this one. Maybe take command. I like the Star Trek beanbag chair. You had me at Star Trek right there. So I don't know if there's something. I don't really see a right for us there.
This is more of a, yeah.
Product page.
Product page. Oh yeah, there we go.
There it
Okay,
is.
I gotcha. If I just need to learn how to internet. So okay, so here's this, and then I wonder. Let's look for the actual right for us section if it's in the footer. Or no, it's an endless scroll. This is why doing it live. There's some interesting things that I bet it's in the header up here. But if I'm smell testing the site, I'm going to look at things like, okay, when was this article posted? This article was posted today. Do they typically get a lot of a lot of content? They write a lot of content. So the last one was written yesterday and the day before. So I would assume that there's a lot of fresh content on here, so maybe it's something that I want to, I want to pay attention to. Let's look at their Twitter. Let's look at their, that's not their Twitter link. That always gets me. So if you want to look at both their Twitter, maybe they'll have links to social media. Oh, yeah. There it is. That's what I wanted to get. Okay, so let's see how often they post on Twitter. We're doing it live, people. Doing it live. So 20 minutes ago. So great. So they're posting stuff on Twitter. They're kind of prolific with that. And then I haven't even looked at domain authority yet, but maybe that's something that we'll. I can't log into it right now, but if we want to run it through, look at domain authority, that's definitely something we would do. So yeah, it's just all those things that we're looking for.
It looks promising.
It looks promising.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that would get added to our list to maybe look to outreach to later. So
let's jump to some article examples and
yes.
talk about link placement specifically before we run out of time here. And I don't know which one. This was kind of a weird example.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you mentioned formatting.
Yeah, it's really
so
bare bones.
I've got this zoomed in like 200% so you guys can see it a little bit better. This is what it actually looks like on a modern 2016 screen. That 90s small resolution format.
Wow.
Look at that beauty. I'm being very sarcastic here.
So much empty space. It's like a snowstorm. It's like a blizzard on the side of the screen.
So yeah, that's just our kind of bad example. It's a classic list post. They've got a couple links in there that are highlighted very strangely.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the last one is really, obvious, like graded, kind of going to a site page kind of thing.
Right. So yeah, if we go down to the last link on the bottom there, that's the kind of one that was like kind of like a red flag. Flag one. This
is going to contractorconnection.com. And that's probably who sponsored this.
Yeah,
article.
Exactly. And I think there's actually, was this one where there was two in there? I think it was like two to the same domain. Two
really?
to contractor.
Or there's a shoe one that we were looking at.
Oh, that was the shoe one.
Yeah,
oh yeah, let's pull the shoe
Next
shoes from
example coming up.
Oh wait, no, not this one. It's the other shoe one next to it. Choosing. That's one that we were looking for. So so then as far as these are examples of things, the pitfalls that we want to avoid when doing a guest post. And so there's.
But this one looks pretty. What are you saying?
It does look very pretty. But the only links in this article are to the same. Yeah. There's two links that go into the same site, which is the TataClick.com footwear. So both links in the article, the only links in the article are to the same footwear seller.
So there's the first.
So there they are.
I believe that's pronounced ta-da.
Ta-da.
Yeah. It just reads like an ad, and it's kind of not inspiring, kind of like.
Yeah, and the links. Okay, so I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's like a link in an article, even if it is a link back to a client or whomever, a link in an article should always serve the article and serve the reader and get them a higher understanding of the topic of the article, or link them to a very interesting piece of content or a very useful piece of content that the client has created. Now, neither of which these links both dump you off at product pages. And I wouldn't really call that supporting or serving the article necessarily, or something that's revolutionary or leverageable. So God bless this person that put the time together to make this article and whatnot. And so great, thank you. But as far as like as far as like what you want to avoid with a guest post, this is a great example of what to avoid.
All right, so next example, you want to do this one or this?
Yeah, we could do that one if it'll let us. Okay, no thanks.
Okay.
So this is, I thought it was, oops, that goes to the wrong, oops, okay, hold on. Well, I was trying to find where this was going from. Hold on, let me just find it here. Here we go.
There we go.
Okay, I went to the wrong one. Sorry about that, people. Okay, so I thought that this was a good use of anchor text. Most of these, so one good policy is to link to high authoritative sites when you're linking to sources. This goes to USA Today. Then there's the internal linking, which is another good practice as a blogger. This has it's internally linked to an article about 3D printing. And then the first kind of site that seemed, this is one to Wired, so another authoritative site. Again, you want to use this authoritative sites, as authoritative as you can in terms of your source information, right? New York Times, BBC, that kind of thing. This is the first time that you come across a combination of machine learning, so it takes us to this page, which is an article, but it also seems to be a business. So I was thinking this might possibly be one of the clients that this person is writing for. We don't know, but it looks like it's possible. But it's informational and it's useful, and so that seems like a good example of how to do that well, right?
And I love that it's linking to a thought out piece of content, instead of a product page.
And that that really helps us do our job too. Is when our clients' websites have great evergreen resources that we can use. That's another thing that helps. So you want to try to find the useful content on your client sites.
So Jordan just submitted this question of the day, gold star for Jordan. In some situations, editors will remove links from your articles. Is there a right way to ask them to place that link in another fashion, perhaps in the author bio? Or is it best to just lose the battle and try to place a link better next time on that particular site? I always think about this question, and it is a battle, that's for sure.
Well, Daphne, how do you approach it? I have a answer myself, but I'd love to hear yours.
I always just feel I always just kind of say that all my resources that I link to are informational. They help to that's where I get my information from, and I feel like it's my obligation to link to the resource that helped contribute to what made the article what it is. So I feel like it's being a responsible kind of writer.
If you've done legitimate research, you're sourcing your site. It's a citation to your source of information.
So that's how I always put it, basically.
It's required in all college thesis papers.
Because we can't do right, because we can't do a bibliography. This is kind of the form of bibliography that we use. So that's kind of usually what I say.
Well, that's pretty much exactly what is my experience, what I would recommend as well. I couldn't really say it better myself.
Does the author bio thing, is that a substitute, or would that just be wasted effort?
That's more if you're going to your own personal, if you're plugging your own personal website.
Okay.
A client link in an author bio, it's not, I think it's kind of a lose-lose because it's not really contextually, amazing if it shows up in the author bio, and it's also something that's like, that's not the point that we want to just get the link in the article. It's get the link on that page. And so if they're just saying, well, here, I'll just do that, and I'll just give a link to the client somewhere on the page, or I'll throw it in your bio. because I don't really care how it fits in with the story. Well, that's just a piece of the whole purpose. So
and it's not going to carry as much weight.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
It were organically included in the article.
So our last question of the day, we're running out of time here, comes from Michael, and a current relevant question. What are your thoughts on pitching pieces of content such as infographics, ebooks, etc., and I might add in there myself video instead of guest posts?
We do it a lot. We do it all over with a lot of our relationships. A lot of infographics. I'm sure, Daphne, you've had.
Yeah, you can do a little write-up around it. That's one useful way to suggest it. You can also use it as an image link, but that's what a lot of people do is put an article, like a short article around it, and that helps to kind of, it's kind of a hybrid, It's kind of a cross between a guest post and a resource link in a way.
And if you're working as freelance or agency, this might be an asset that the client has already created that you're trying to promote.
Yes.
But if you're in-house, that you're teaming up with your creative designers to develop this off the fly or on, just out of thin air.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to do it.
Ebooks does not come off. That's something that takes a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it. We kind of just say, guest posts is like articles is kind of like the main piece of content that we shop out, but we shop out all sorts of content, and if it's valuable content that is useful for the reader, for some part of the audience, then we're happy to help promote it. Because with link building, it's basically promoting great content.
Well, and if your client or your home company has those assets already living on their site, that could just be where you point the link.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Is like, and especially like we haven't really touched on today, obviously, but is like the resource link building side of it. Whereas like instead of searching for blogs, kind of like our last webinar, instead of we're not searching for blogs, or to write an article and all that. We're searching for a place to link back to, just get this link on someone's resource page, get listed among among our peers in the industry, and that's it. Or get the link to a really great piece of leverageable content, like one of the best I've ever seen is a guide for a client was in the finance industry, in the finance world, but on their site they had for free for teachers was a financial literacy curriculum. And that was one of the best things that we'd ever resource link build for, and we also did content for them as well. But we're basically trying to find a place to people that have resources for teachers and for students and for financial literacy. And hey, here's this link to this really well thought out piece of financial literacy curriculum that's free for teachers. And how cool is that? And they got so many great links from like .govs and .orgs and all that because of that one great piece of content that the client had. So food for thought there.
So to wrap this up, let's say you've got your article published, the editor kept the links in there, so that's a win. How do you go forward? Is there some promotion of the article on your own part? How do you foster that relationship going forward?
Yeah, well, definitely tell them thank you, and that you're interested in writing for them in the future, just so they know. Try to keep the door open there, and then I always share it on my Twitter account, and sometimes LinkedIn, Facebook, depending on how comfortable you feel, but definitely Twitter, and more than once, and that kind of keeps this reciprocal relationship going, and the site owner is going to appreciate that, and it'll get you more potential exposure as a writer for in the future. So.
Okay.
Well, we are out of time, and that means it's time for lunch here in Boise, Idaho. Everybody stay safe. Have happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Festivus, whatever you celebrate. Just do it smart and wise, and care for your neighbor. We are done here, and any other questions, throw that out to Twitter using hashtag P1P webinar, And let me come back to where we all started. There we go. Yeah, use that hashtag P1P webinar to give us any follow-up questions. We would love to hear from you there, and look for the video recording tomorrow in your inbox. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.